a song that Srila Prabhupada would sing before he would give class, called Jaya Radha Madhava. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Shodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Shodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha, I got it. Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Thank you. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All right, welcome. We'll now do an invocation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta prayeshra bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishaki. My regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, my rendering of service to the pure devotee, service unto the heart is almost completely destroyed, loving service unto the personality of Godhead. Praise with transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Alright, final verse. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Could someone pass me my water bottle? All right. Today we are starting a new chapter, chapter 16 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we've been following King Chitraketu, and now this chapter has a very exciting title. King Chitraketu meets the Supreme Lord. Hari Bol. Pretty nice. Just some catch up for those of you who might be new, or for those of you who are following the story. King Chitraketu, he had 10 million wives. That's a lot of wives, right? And so he was trying to have a child, and somehow it just wasn't working with each wife. And so he would remarry, and then that wife also couldn't have children. Then he'd remarry. And so at a certain point, he got very frustrated, and this saint, this sage came and said, okay, I'll do you a favor. I'll give you a child, but this child will be the cause of your jubilation and your lamentation. So it's both. So in his head, he thought, okay, maybe this child will be a little rebellious. Maybe this child will give me a hard time sometimes. But what actually happened was that the child died at a young age. And so this jubilation of, I finally have a son and heir to my kingdom, it very quickly turned into this dark despair. It's actually one of the worst pains that you can experience is the death of one of your children. And so the Bhagavatam, it delves into all of these different scenarios, all of these different states of consciousness that you can be in. And this is an extreme example of grief from this king who waited so long to have a son. And then finally, when he has a son, the son dies prematurely. And now, after the son died, the saint and his friend Narada, they come back and they instruct him on transcendental science, on spiritual knowledge. And they say, you're not this body, and, he's not the body. And now we're reading in this chapter where there's a resurrection of his son. How exciting. So, yeah, we'll just read text 1. Can someone please read the first text?
Text 1. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, My dear King Parikshit, by his mystic power, the great sage Narada brought the dead son into vision of all the lamenting relatives, and then spoke as follows.
So, have you guys ever thought, if only I could talk to them one more time? So this is the situation, is that he's going to get to talk to his son one more time, except it probably won't go as you might expect. So stay tuned.
Sri Narada Muni said, O living entity, all good fortune unto you. Just see your father and mother. All your friends and relatives are overwhelmed with grief because of your passing away.
Because you died untimely, the balance of your lifetime still remains. Therefore, you may re-enter your body and enjoy the remainder of your life, surrounded by your friends and relatives. Accept the royal throne and all the opulences given by your father.
By the mystic power of Narada Muni, the living entity re-entered his dead body for a short time and spoke in reply to Narada Muni's request. He said, "According to the results of my fruitive activities, I, the living being, transmigrate from one body to another, sometimes going to the species of the demigods, sometimes to the species of lower animals, sometimes among the vegetables, and sometimes to the human species. Therefore, Therefore, in which birth were these my mother and father? No one is actually my mother and father. How can I accept these two people as my parents?"
Yeah, so, let's see. Narada Muni, he says, come back to your body and enjoy the kingdom. Your father and mother miss you so much. You still have some of your life left to live. And this soul, he comes back and he says, which father and mother? I've had so many fathers, so many mothers. I've had vegetable moms, vegetable dads. I've had, lower animals and demigod parents. So he says, which ones are you? Who are actually my parents? So please read the next text.
In this material world, which advances like a river that carries away the living entity, all people become friends, relatives, and enemies in due course of time. They also act neutrally. They mediate, they despise one another, and they act in many other relationships. Nonetheless, despite these various transactions, no one is permanently related.
So I really like Srila Prabhupada's purports in this section, so we're just going to read them all. It's only a few verses today, so we can spend time to read them. But our focus verse is still a little bit. I'll just read this purport quickly. It is our practical experience in this material world that the same person who is one's friend today becomes one's enemy tomorrow. Our relationships as friends or enemies, family men or outsiders, are actually the results of our different dealings. Chitraketu Maharaj was lamenting for his son who was now dead, but he could have otherwise considered the situation. He could have considered the situation otherwise. This living entity, he could have thought, was my enemy in my last life, and now, having appeared as my son, he is prematurely leaving just to give me pain and agony. Why should he not consider his dead son his former enemy, and instead of lamenting, be jubilant because of an enemy's death? As stated in Bhagavad Gita 3:27, Prakrite Kriyamanani Gunai Karmani Sarvasha. Factually, everything is happening because of our association with the modes of material nature. Therefore, one who is my friend today in association with the mode of goodness may be my enemy tomorrow in association with the modes of passion and ignorance. As the modes of material nature work in illusion, we accept others as friends, enemies, sons, or fathers in terms of the reactions of different dealings under different conditions. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Yeah, so this is an amazing example of how it's spiritual knowledge. It's so dynamic that even the death of the son, Prabhupada is saying, he could have been jubilant that, oh, my enemy is now dead. Not to say that this is how we should think, this is how we should act, but it just goes to show that things aren't exactly always as they seem. The child who comes into your family, betrayal comes from those we expect it from the least. And so, sometimes due to a karmic linking to each other, a living entity will follow another living entity into the next birth, and they will come into the same family even. It's not by chance that we are surrounded by the people we're surrounded by. It's not by chance that we're in a certain family, but we have a karmic link with these people from previous lives that we still have to live out, Juno. Well, in a sense, everything in the material world causes a karmic link. If we act piously, pious karma. We have an auspicious family, perhaps, or, well-to-do. And if you act impiously, then you get impious karma. You get perhaps more rough situations. And so the Uh, yeah, that mic is on, I think. Or a mic is buzzing. But the only true freedom from karma is on the spiritual platform. When we have spiritual relationships, those aren't affected by karma. All right. But yeah, who liked that purport? Me. Very interesting concept to think about. Next text, please.
Just as gold and other commodities are continuously transferred from one place to another in due course of purchase and sale, so the living entity, as a result of its fruitive activities, wanders throughout the entire universe, being injected into various bodies in different species of life by one kind of father after another.
So we'll focus on this verse and we'll come back to it. Next text, please.
Text 7. A few living entities are born in the human species and others are born as animals. Although both are living entities, their relationships are impermanent. An animal may remain in the custody of a human being for some time, and then the same animal may be transferred to the possession of other human beings. As soon as the animal goes away, the former proprietor no longer has a sense of ownership. As long as the animal is in his possession, he certainly has an affinity for it. But as soon as the animal is sold, the affinity is lost.
Final text.
Hare Krishna. Text 8. Even though one living entity becomes connected with another because of a relationship based on bodies that are perishable, the living entity is in eternal. Actually, it is the body that is born or lost, not the living entity. One should not accept that the living entity takes birth or dies. The living being actually has no relationship with no so-called fathers and mothers. As long as appears as the son of certain father and mother as a result of his past fruitive activities, he has a connection with the body given by the father and mother. Thus, he falsely accepts himself as their son and acts affectionately after he dies. However, the relationship is finished under their circumstances. One should not be falsely involved with jubilation and lamentation.
Okay. So now we'll go back to our focus verse, text 6, and we'll read the Sanskrit. Atavastuni panyani he madini tatastata Paryatanti nareshvevam Jivo yoni shukartrishu. Chant. Nibanyani Paryatanti nareshvevam Avastuni panyani Hemandini tadasava Aryantanti nareshvevam Jivo yoni shukarchishu Avastuni panyani Hemandini tadasava I think there's a mic on somewhere. Yeah, it's that one. Anyone else? Avastuni panyani Hemadrini Talasita Aryantanti Nareshvevam. Right? Synonyms all together. Yata, just as. Vastuni, commodities. Panyani, meant for trading. Hemadini, such as gold. Tata, tata, from here to there. Paryantanti, move about. Nareshu, among men. Evam, in this way. Jiva, the living entity. Yonishu, in different species of life. Karchushu, in different material fathers. Translation, just as gold and other commodities are continually transferred from one place to another in due course of purchase and sale, so the living entity, as a result of his fruitive activities, wanders throughout the entire universe, being injected into various bodies in different species of life by one kind of father after another. Purport. It has already been explained, or someone else should read the purport.
It has already been explained that Chichiketu's son was his enemy in a past life and had now appeared as his son just to give him more severe pain. Indeed, the untimely death of the son caused severe lamentation for the father. One may put forward the argument, if the king's son was his enemy, how could the king have so much affection for him? In answer, the example is given that when someone's wealth falls into the hands of his enemy, the money becomes the enemy's friend. Then the enemy can use it for his own purposes. Indeed, he can use it to harm its previous owner. Therefore, the money belongs to neither to one of the party nor to the other. The money is always money, but in different situations it can be used as an enemy or a friend.
Okay.
As explained in the Bhagavad Gita, it is not by any father or mother that the living entity is given its birth. The living entity is a completely separate identity from the so-called father and mother. By the laws of nature, the living entity is forced to enter the semen of a father and be injected into the womb of the mother. He is not in control of selecting what kind of father he will accept. Prakriti Kriyamanani, the laws of nature force him to go into different fathers and mothers, just as a consumer commodity that is purchased and sold. Therefore, the so-called relationship of a father and son is an arrangement of Prakriti, or nature. It has no meaning, and therefore it is called illusion.
Maybe someone else wants to read?
The same living entity sometimes takes shelter of an animal father and mother, and sometimes a human father and mother. Sometimes he accepts a father and mother among the birds, and sometimes he accepts a demigod father and mother. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore says, Ramanda Brahmite Kunna Bhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bija. Harassed life after life by the laws of nature, the living entity wanders throughout the entire universe in different planets and different species of life. Somehow or other, if he is fortunate enough, he comes in touch with a devotee who reforms his entire life. Then the living entity goes back home, back to Godhead. Therefore it is said, Janame Janame Sabe Pita Matapaya Krishna Gunahi Mile Bhaja Hariye. In the transmigration of the soul through different bodies, everyone in every form of life, be it human, animal, tree, or demigod, gets a father and mother. This is not very difficult. The difficulty is to obtain a bona fide spiritual master and Krishna. Therefore, the duty of a human being is to capture the opportunity to come in touch with Krishna's representative, the bona fide spiritual master. Under the guidance of the spiritual master, the spiritual father, one can return home back to Godhead.
Okay, so we are hearing from the Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Wonderful purport and translations. So we're hearing from the spirit soul. That's quite interesting, right? Anyone here heard from the spirit soul before? It's usually like Krishna speaking or like, different sages. But here, the soul is talking to the soul's so-called father. And yeah, we're getting a glimpse into the history of the soul. And so this isn't just talking about King Chitraketu's son, but it's talking about us. The living entity is sitting in this room right now. That we have been all over the universe, actually. We've already been everywhere. Sometimes people are like, oh, I really want to go to these higher planets. You've already been there. You know, you've seen what there is to see in this material world. We've had the mother and father of a bird, of a turtle, of a snail, of a hog, of a demigod, of a human. We've seen it all in a sense. The soul has wandered through this material world for so long. And actually, you know, we may be seeking some unique experience. Oh, in this life, I really want to. But who's to say that you haven't already done that in a previous life? So, yeah, the goal of life isn't to just continue wandering, isn't just to continue going from one species to another, one planet to another. The goal of life is to actually get out. And so this has been our situation for, Srila Prabhupada would say, since time immemorial. It's almost incalculable how long we've been in this material world, just wandering. There's this nice little prayer. It goes, I'm by nature the eternal servant of Krishna, but somehow or other, by misfortune, due to being influenced, due to my forgetfulness of Krishna, I've been wandering in this material world, being burnt by the threefold material miseries. So, in a sense, it's not fun to wander through the material world, because what's the material world meant for? It's meant to wake us up. It's meant to, give us some kicks so that we stop wandering. But the living entity, it's almost helpless in this regard. How can the living entity ever break out of karma? It's like, even if you try to do something good, okay, and then you become a demigod, but then you have to come back down. Okay, let me try to, do something bad. Okay, but it's like a wheel. It's like a trap that we've been stuck in. And, there's no way to get out. And Krishna, he won't interfere. Krishna's not going to come in and, stop your free will, because he gives us free will, because that's his mercy. But who will break the rules is the devotee. The devotee doesn't have to follow karma. The devotee doesn't have to think, oh, does this person deserve spiritual knowledge? Does this person deserve spiritual love, spiritual enlightenment? He doesn't think that way. He doesn't even look at your karma. Srila Prabhupada, they said that they had this experience where he just looked through them. He didn't look at the color, the age, the size, this or that. He just looked through them to the soul, and he would see this soul has been wandering. Let us, give them some spiritual knowledge. Let me help this soul out. So that's the role of the guru in this world. That's the role of the teacher, is to, grab one of these wanderers and say, hey, there's more out there. And so this is actually, we can understand this to be the most powerful position in the material world, because it's the only position which we don't have to abide by karma, is the position of a spiritual teacher. It's the position where we can actually, break through that cycle of whatever this soul is going through. Krishna himself, he doesn't want to encroach on our free will, but the devotee has that ability to enter someone else's life and take them out of this wheel of constant changing from species to species. So, yeah, it's something for us to keep in mind, is that we may have affection for those we come from, or we may have affection for our community. We may have affection for where we come from. But we've come from so many families. We've come from so many countries. We've come from so many communities. In your past life, perhaps you were part of you were in Russia and you were part of a Russian riot or something. So there's so many different communities we attach ourselves to, so many different identities. I am a part of, you know, this group for this skin color, or this disability maybe, or different ways that we identify. But we've been so many places. And reincarnation, it's a very interesting topic. I know my mom really likes looking into reincarnation. And it's scientific. It actually describes, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that whatever state of being one is in when he quits this body, that state he will attain. And we hear that if one thinks of, we hear from the fourth canto that when one thinks of the opposite sex at the time of death, he will likely become the opposite sex in the next life. And so that's perhaps how we have the body we have now, is perhaps you were a woman in your past life, or perhaps you were a man. You can never know, but these things have a scientific pattern that our consciousness, our actions in this life will lead us to the next life. And so that's the purpose of spiritual life, is to prepare for this transition. And prepare for us to be transferred into another body, but hopefully a spiritual body. And another angle to look at these verses is seeing how to look at grief, how to look at when a soul leaves us. And we can see, what is this living entity saying? Does anyone have an idea what this living entity is saying? Anyone can summarize what we read in the past 8 verses? Even just one sentence. What's the living entity trying to tell his father? Daniel, you can just shout it out. Okay, yeah, you're one of my fathers. Which one are you? And you had something, Briat? You can just say it out loud. Our relationship is not as significant as we thought. Okay, Stephen, you had something?
Yeah. None of our relationships or attachments to different places relevant to one body really matters, because we've been in so many.
Okay, Jai. Juno.
The enemy baby is trying to say, stop having babies. Your kingdom is material, so after you die, it's just going to turn into dust. So you don't have to give it to anybody. Just, I guess, go for spiritual advancement. That's what's more important.
Yeah, and this baby, he, as we'll read in the future verses, he says, let me go. Let me keep going. Don't hold me back. He even says, like, why did you bring me back to this body? I need to keep going on my journey. And you need to be okay with that. And so, how do we act when we read these verses? Okay, blocking my mom, blocking my dad, and leaving the family group chat on Facebook. And no, it's we're meant to formulate perhaps a more mature understanding. Is that while our relationship may not be so much based on the flesh, may not be so much based on, okay, I came from your body, so now I have to, have an allegiance to your people regardless of whatever you do. We can appreciate, we can have gratitude, of course, because it's no small thing to raise a child, regardless of if, your parents were like some saints or not. It's no small thing. And then also we can, if we have contacted spiritual knowledge, we can make them a recipient of spiritual knowledge. One time, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, if you see his picture is to the right of Srila Prabhupada's feet, he asked Srila Prabhupada, my mother is going to be in the same city as this festival. My mother is going to, I think his mother would even be at that festival. And he said, am I allowed to go? I'm a sannyasi. I'm a monk. Doesn't that mean I can't be around my family? I can't be around my mother? And Srila Prabhupada, from what I remember, he says, like, this is true, but if you like, you may make your mother a special recipient of your mercy. And so he gave him blessings to take care of his mother in Krishna consciousness. And actually we saw that Tamal Krishna Maharaj's mother became so elevated, and she died, she passed in a very exalted way. And I believe he was right there next to her. So this can be our perspective, is that while we may have these attachments, these communities that we've formed in our life, we shouldn't be attached in a sentimental way. Oh, I love these people just because they're the same as me, just because they look like me, just because they walk like me, just because I grew up in this way. But we should try to make these relationships, don't try to burn the bridges, but try to spiritualize the bridges. Try to use these connections that you have to make them go deeper and to make them benefit these other people. Another point that oh, is this dead? Let me see. All right, we can see if there's any quick comments, and then I'll touch back on whatever point I had. Any thoughts?
I was thinking of this metaphor of material life being like the negative numbers on a number line. And so that's like having materialistic family where we're all just selfishly trying to be happy in the material world, not thinking about spiritual life. And then 0 on the number line is reading this and saying, okay, no family. Let me block them all and renounce them all. And it's kind of cruel and cold. But the positive part of the number line is, like you're saying, seeing how they're connected to Krishna and how we can help them. But then also we need to be careful to not like become preachers in our families, because I've seen it, and I've experienced personally that it almost never works, and it usually I think we can enlighten our family. Better we teach by our own example.
Yeah, I had like this mental image of like a new person coming and bringing this big blue chair and sitting it in the living room and saying, okay, everyone, all the cousins, all the nephews, all the nieces, come and sit. I shall now enlighten you. So really on a practical level, there'll be a visible difference if you're happy in life. It's such a rare thing to be happy. It's such a rare thing to have community. It's such a rare thing to have purpose and drive and spiritual inspiration. So they'll be able to see that. And when the time is right, they will perhaps be interested in, how can I also have community? How can I also, I see that, things will happen in your life, like King Chitraketu, his son, has left. Things will happen in our lives, and we will have to use these spiritual tools to make it through. Yeah, thank you for that nice point. I remembered the point I was going to try to make, just to kind of wrap it up, to tie it up, is that when we spiritualize these relationships, what is spirit? Spirit is eternal. It's blissful and it's full of knowledge. And so material relationships, they leave when the body leaves. But these spiritual relationships, they're not material and they're not temporary. If we form these spiritual relationships, they last through different lives even. And they last even in the spiritual dimension. So, if we have to encounter grief in our life, if we have to encounter someone leaving, and also, spiritual people who have helped us so much, they're leaving, we can see perhaps not in such a mundane way that, oh, their body's gone, they're gone. Oh, they're no longer breathing, okay, they're gone. I'm so sad. But we can see what this soul is saying is that they're going somewhere else. And perhaps if they've been like a teacher to you, they still are present with you through, the spiritual energy, through instruction, through teachings. I recall that many of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's disciples, they said that he became more accessible to them when he had left. When he was no longer, you could say, limited, not to say that he was limited, but by space and time, they felt that he was more accessible. So we shouldn't have material consciousness when someone departs. That was the final point. All right, any other discussion points? We have Stephen and then Daniel. And I'd like to hear from Tammy, because I know that you have some experience in reincarnation and things like that. So,
I just wanted to say, yeah, we don't, I guess, we don't say Haribol. We're Vaishnavas now, so we don't have to grieve for anyone. Actually, there's like the whole tradition of grieving in our community, which is epitomized by the song Jaya Nilo Prema Dana by Narottam Das Thakur, which we sing on disappearance days of great Vaishnavas. So, but yeah, it's a more mature kind of grieving where it's like, oh, your body is gone, I miss you, I'll never be able to enjoy you anymore in your presence. But it's like, I miss you so much because you were so dear to Krishna and you helped me so much and you uplifted me so much. So it's a completely different perspective, and it's a beautiful thing. And other than that, I just wanted to say I love this pastime so much. It's so cool. It's such it really makes you feel like good. At least to me, it makes me feel very, spiritual, where it's like, wow, it really doesn't matter the things that have happened to me in this life, my body, my relationships, my nostalgia and memories and loved ones. It's like, it's all really just like grains of sand. We're all just grains of sand, like coming together and then being separated again. So it's really nice. It's like empowering. It's like, wow, I really am not this body.
yeah, this is such a good pastime for that. Daniel? You might be too far, perhaps.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Thank you for teaching today. I had some reflections, and please correct me anywhere that I'm incorrect, because I don't know very much, but these are my thoughts, and this is what I wrote. I wrote, the idea that pious activities lead you to a karmic reaction of a well-to-do family or auspicious family, I think is simplifying and applying a human idea of linear association to Krishna's organizational pastimes. This example, the sage became a demon where everyone hated him because that would bring him closest to going back to Krishna much sooner. Krishna puts us in lives and situations only he knows will bring us closer to him. A linear path of pious activities does not necessarily lead to going back to Godhead. More so, our attachment to the outcome of activities, even going back to Godhead, can hinder us on our paths to total surrender and love of Krishna. In reality, we cannot make any suggestions to our fruitive activities that lead to this life unless Krishna chooses to disclose that to us. And that was just my mental recap of what I've been learning.
Jai. Yeah, it seems like you got it pretty well.
Thank you.
Yeah, the path of bhakti, it looks different for everyone. And just a big lesson we're seeing here is what may be seemingly so terrible is actually a great blessing if you have the right perspective. In a material sense, you can say, oh, my son has died. I'm so sad. And then we have another material perspective of someone who knows reincarnation. It says, oh, my previous enemy has died. woohoo! And then the spiritual perspective is what we're seeing here is that after Chitraketu is enlightened, what's this chapter called? King Chitraketu meets the Supreme Lord. So these kinds of terrible situations, these kinds of situations where he was put in, perhaps the most grief you can experience in this material world, the death of your child, this situation which seems so hard was actually the catalyst for him to meet the Supreme Lord. In a very short time, not even a few weeks later, he meets the Supreme Lord. And then similarly, when he assumes a demon body, it's like, oh my God, to have a ferocious form that's, terrifying to all, that must be such a hard thing. But actually, it's a blessing of Krishna. Like Daniel was saying, it's that these things, which may appear to be stumbling blocks on our path, are actually given by Krishna. All right. So, got a few more minutes if anyone has discussion points. Gokulananda, then Prabhupada Priya. Oh. Or actually, Prabhupada Priya has to go in a second. There's a mic over here. Oh.
Hare Krishna. I just wanted to, Daniel said a very important point that I just wanted to bring out a little more, is that, because you were talking about karma, and it seems like Chitraketu's getting some bad karma here, and it seems like his rebirth as Vritrasura was also some pretty bad karma, that he took birth as a big ugly demon that no one liked. But then it helped him, so it wasn't bad. So, yeah, that I wanted to make this point that the arrangements, things that happen to a devotee, it's happening in a different system than karma. Right? So people who are not devotees of Krishna, then they are, things that happen to them, it's just happening according to the laws of nature. So the modes influence them, and then according to their actions, they get a reaction according to karma. But for devotees, it's different because they're not under the laws of karma anymore. Krishna relinquishes them from all. If you've surrendered to Krishna, Krishna relinquishes you from all sinful reactions, all karmic reactions. And then the other laws of karma are not in play in your life. So whatever happens from that point is Krishna. It's just Krishna's arrangement. And so it may look like bad karma, but it's actually always... So for devotees, it's always going to be a good thing, even if it looks bad. And so sometimes we might think, like I'm suffering the results of my past sins, and I just have to accept it as Krishna's mercy or a test and go forward. But actually, it's all good for devotees, because Krishna's it's just everything is just happening as an arrangement, as the perfect arrangement by Krishna, who's all loving and just is arranging the best thing for us, no matter what it looks like externally. Yeah, we see that, and this is like this pastime is like perfect example of that.
All right, yeah, thank you. Mother Tammy, and then Gokulan and Nupur.
I picked up on the same thing that that we talked about earlier, was that we have a tendency to think that everyone that we're surrounded by is our reincarnated loved ones. Like in our family, the 3 kids that have told us that who they were in their past lives, they were loved ones. But in this, Chitraketu was told that his child would be his source of lamentation or of misery, or jubilation and misery. And then it's pointed out that maybe he died early to give him pain from a situation from a past lifetime, where he's coming back to not necessarily love him, but to cause him lamentation. And so we never know who was our enemy and who was our loved one in a past lifetime. So and then everyone is obviously meant to propel us forward. And then in our situation where we know who the kids were, it makes it very, very obvious that what you're thinking of when you die is where you're going back to, or where you're going to return to. So if you want to return to Godhead, then you should be thinking about Krishna and not about your loved ones, as hard as that may be.
Jai.
Thank you for a wonderful class, Prabhu. As you were speaking about reincarnation, I was just reminded the story that I heard 20 years ago within ISKCON world. In Bhaktivedanta Manor, there is one of the congregation devotees, the lady, she distinctly remembers her past, that how she was a brahmachari in Gaudiya Math, and how she happened to break the regulative principles, and she was attached to a woman, and that's how she was born as a woman. So I was meditating on this, and I was trying to connect it to the teachings of Bhagavad Gita, and several things just came up to my mind, which I'd like to share here with your permission. So Krishna says, yam yam vapi smaran bhavam. So this is corroborated here, the state of consciousness that we are in, right? Then Krishna also promises, swalpam apyasya dharmasya, what little bit of advancement done on this path is, can protect you from the greatest type of fear. Then Krishna protected that soul's spiritual advancement. Then Krishna also says, matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha. Krishna mercifully allowed her to remember her past, right? Like in case with Jad Bharat. Then as you also said, I forgot that point. You mentioned that wonderful point. Krishna doesn't interfere, right? So Krishna allows the free will. So Krishna usually doesn't interfere, and this is corroborated again, right? That 100% karma is never immediately vanquished. It is discounted, tattenukampa, right? It is discounted. We cannot say that just because I took up the devotional service, I am labeled in ISKCON as a devotee. Have I really become a devotee? There are various stages of devotee. And Krishna also says to the extent, to the degree we surrender, to that degree only, right? Krishna reciprocates, and to that degree the karma is discounted, right? So Vishnu Purana also supports this particular idea where it says, aprarabdam phalam kutam bijam phalan mukam Vishnur bhakti yata ratatmanam krameneva praliyante. That is the word used, krameneva. It is gradually vanquished. It is never vanquished immediately. So all these teachings, they're supported by this particular living example I was reflecting on.
Jai, thank you, Prabhu. What an interesting story.
Just one last point. Just because externally I've become a devotee doesn't mean, I'm free of law of karma. Law of karma still holds good.
Yeah. Jai. Yeah, wow. Reincarnation is a very hot topic. So, to end off, it's time for breakfast, but we can keep in mind who our true father is, Krishna, and the relationship that will continue after death and beyond is with Krishna. So we can try to see everything and everyone in relation to Krishna, and fix our consciousness so that when it's time to go, we'll go to the right place. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Or Premanande.
Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavangshan Sri Rupam Chakrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tvam Sajivam Shadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanitanscha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur-Bhakta-Vrinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur-Bhakta-Vrinda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur-Bhakta-Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Krishna